The Let Them theory, a deep, narrative retelling inspired by the ideas of Mel Robbins' introduction with, if you stopped carrying other people's lives in your back, most people don't realize how tired they are until someone finally gives them permission to stop. Nit stop trying, nit stop caring, but stop controlling. We wake up every day already tense, already bracing ourselves for other people's moods, reactions, opinions, and decisions. We rehearse conversations that haven't happened yet. We replay conversations that are already over. We wonder why someone didn't call, didn't reply, didn't understand, didn't appreciate us the way we hoped they would, and slowly, without noticing, we turn our lives into a full-time job of managing everyone else. This book begins with a simple but uncomfortable truth: much of your stress doesn't come from what is happening. It comes from your resistance to letting it happen. The Let Them theory isn't a philosophy you study. It's a permission you give yourself, permission to stop fighting reality, permission to stop forcing outcomes, permission to reclaim the energy you've been leaking into other people's choices. This isn't about becoming passive, this is about becoming free. Chapter 1: The Hidden Cost of Trying to Control Everything. If you look closely at your exhaustion, you'll find a test not coming from doing too much, test coming from trying to control what was never yours to control in the first place. From childhood we learn that effort equals results. Study harder, get better grades, work harder, earn more money, be nicer, be liked. And while effort does matter in many areas of life, we quietly extend this logic into places where it doesn't belong, especially into relationships. We believe that if we explain ourselves better, people will understand us. If we love harder, people will change. We worry enough, bad outcomes will disappear. But control doesn't work that way. You can influence, you can communicate, you can show up fully. What you cannot do is decide how another human being thinks, feels, or behaves. And yet most of us spend years trying. We manage tone, we manage timing, we manage expectations, we manage disappointment, and every time reality refuses to cooperate, we feel frustrated, resentful, and powerless. The real tragedy is this: the more you try to control others, the less control you feel over your own life. Because your emotional state becomes dependent on something you cannot command. This chapter invites you to see control for what it really isn't: strength, but fear dressed up as responsibility. Chapter 2: The moment you realize you're allowed to let go. There is a strange relief that comes when you finally admit the truth to yourself. I am exhausted because I am trying to manage things that don't belong to me. This is where the phrase "let them" enters your life, not as advice but as a pause. Someone doesn't respond the way you hoped, let them. Someone misunderstands your intentions, let them. Someone chooses differently than you would, let them. At first this feels irresponsible, almost dangerous. Your mind argues, if I don't step in, everything will fall apart. But what you begin to see, slowly, quietly, is that most things fall into place without your interference. Let them isn't surrender. It is recognition. Recognition that adults are responsible for their own choices. Recognition that outcomes are not always yours to manage. Recognition that peace begins where control ends. This chapter marks the psychological shift, the moment you stop gripping life with white knuckles and start opening your hands. Chapter 3: Why Let Them Alone Isn't Enough. Here is where many people misunderstand the theory. You stop at let them, you may become distant, detached, emotionally unavailable. You might confuse letting go with not caring. That's why the second half of the theory matters just as much. Let me. Let me choose how I respond. Let me decide what I tolerate. Let me focus on what I can build, improve, or change. Let me is where your power lives. You cannot control others, but you can control your standards. You cannot manage reactions, but you can manage boundaries. You cannot force understanding, but you can choose clarity. This chapter teaches that freedom comes not from disengaging from life, but from redirecting your effort inward where it actually makes a difference. Chapter 4: Stress isn't the enemy, resistance is. Most people believe stress means something is wrong, but stress isn't proof of failure. Stress is proof that you are alive in a world that doesn't bend to your preferences. The problem begins when you are you with reality. You think this shouldn't be happening, you think they shouldn't act this way, you think I shouldn't feel like this, and every should tightens the knot. This chapter explains how saying let them removes friction between what is and what you wish was. It doesn't eliminate challenges, it removes the extra suffering layered on top of them. When you stop fighting reality, your nervous system calms, your thinking clears, your energy returns. Stress becomes information, not a threat. Chapter 5: Let them think whatever they want about you. There is no prison more exhausting than the one built from other people's opinions. We edit ourselves constantly, we soften truths, we shrink desires, all to avoid judgment that will happen anyway. This chapter delivers a difficult truth: you will be misunderstood no matter how carefully you live. Some people will project their fears into you. Some will dislike you without knowing you, some will rewrite your story to make themselves comfortable. Trying to control perception is a losing game. When you say let them, something remarkable happens. You stop auditioning for approval and start living with integrity. You realize you were never meant to be universally liked, you were meant to be authentic. Chapter 6: Loving people without trying to fix them. One of the hardest applications of the let them theory is in love. We see potential, we see pain, we see what could be, and we try to guide, shape, rescue, correct. But love that tries to control becomes heavy, and love that carries another adult's responsibility becomes resentful. This chapter teaches a gentler way to love, when rooted in acceptance rather than expectation. You can care deeply without carrying, you can support without rescuing, you can stay connected without abandoning yourself. Letting someone be who they are does not mean tolerating harm. It means allowing truth to reveal itself clearly. Chapter 7: When other people's emotions try to hijack you. Adults throw emotional tantrums, used quieter wins, sarcasm, silence, passive aggression, overreaction. This chapter explains why other people's emotions feel so contagious, and how to stop absorbing them. You learn to observe without absorbing, to witness without reacting, to stay grounded while others spiral. Let them becomes emotional insulation. Let me becomes emotional leadership. Chapter 8: Why the right choice often feels uncomfortable. Growth does not feel like confidence, feels like uncertainty. This chapter addresses the fear that arises when you stop managing others and start choosing yourself. The discomfort isn't danger, it is unfamiliarity. When you stop overfunctioning, life rebalances, and rebalance always feels unstable at first. Chapter 9: The quiet power of not reacting. One of the most misunderstood ideas in personal growth is silence. People assume silence means weakness. They assume that reacting means agreeing. They assume calm means indifference. But silence, when chosen consciously, is power. Most conflicts escalate not because of the problem itself but because of reaction. A raised eyebrow, a sharp reply, a rushed explanation, a defensive tone. These small reactions feed tension like oxygen feeds fire. The let them theory invites you to pause. Someone criticizes you unfairly, your body tightens, your mind rushes to defend, and then you remember, let them, not because they're right, but because you don't need to prove anything in this moment. This chapter teaches that not every thought needs a voice and that every provocation deserves a response. When you stop reacting automatically, you regain authorship over your emotional life. You begin to notice something surprising: many situations resolve themselves when you don't interfere. Chapter 10: Boundaries are not walls, they are doors. Many people avoid boundaries because they think boundaries push people away. In reality, boundaries are what make healthy connection possible. Without boundaries, resentment grows. Without boundaries, generosity turns into obligation. Without boundaries, love becomes exhaustion. This chapter reframes boundaries not as ultimatums but as clarity. A boundary simply says, this is what I can do, this is what I can't, this is what works for me. When you stop explaining, justifying, and apologizing for your limits, something shifts. The people who respect you step closer. The people who benefit from your lack of boundaries step back. And that information is valuable. Let them react, let them be disappointed, let them adjust or not. Your job is not to manage their feelings, your job is to honor your capacity. Chapter 11: Let them leave. Why loss is sometimes a gift. This chapter is the one most people resist, because letting someone leave feels like failure, but not every ending is a loss. Some endings are reveals. When someone pulls away after you stop overgiving, that tells you something. When someone disappears after you set a boundary, that tells you something. When someone becomes cold when you stop performing, that tells you something. The let them theory teaches that forced closeness is not connection. People who belong in your life will adjust, people who don't will drift. And while that can hurt, it also creates space for alignment, honesty, and peace. This chapter reminds you that your worth is not measured by who stays when you make yourself smaller. Chapter 12: Detaching from outcomes without detaching from effort. Letting go does not mean giving up. It means releasing your attachment to how things must unfold. You still prepare, you still try, you still care. But you stop demanding that life reward your effort in a specific way. This chapter explains why attachment to outcomes creates anxiety, while commitment to effort creates confidence. When you say let them, you free yourself from the emotional roller coaster of expectation. When you say let me, you stay rooted in action, you show up without gripping the result. Chapter 13. When family is the hardest place to practice let them. Family relationships are layered with history, guilt, and unspoken contracts. You're expected to be patient, expected to be understanding, expected to tolerate behavior you will never accept elsewhere. This chapter does not encourage cutting people off lightly. It encourages emotional adulthood. You learn how to stop arguing with people who refuse to change. How to stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. How to love from a distance when closeness costs your peace. Let them be who they are, let you be who you are becoming. Chapter 14. The end of over-explaining. Over-explaining is a sign of self-doubt. You talk more when you don't trust your right to choose. You justify when you fear disapproval. You elaborate when you're hoping for permission. This chapter teaches the power of clean decisions, short answers, clear no's, quiet confidence. You don't owe everyone your internal process. Let them wonder, let them interpret, let you stand steady. Chapter 15. Choosing peace over being right. Being right feels good for a moment. Peace lasts longer. This chapter explores how the need to win arguments often hides a deeper need, the need to feel seen, validated, or safe. When you stop needing agreement, you gain freedom. You learn to walk away from debates that drain you. You stop correcting people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You choose alignment over applause. Peace becomes a daily decision. Chapter 16. How letting them changes your identity. At first, let them feels like something you do. Over time, it becomes someone you are. You stop chasing, stop convincing, stop managing. You become calmer, not because life is easier, but because you are no longer at war with it. This chapter explores the identity shift that happens when you stop outsourcing your emotional stability. You become grounded, self-trusting, centered. Chapter 17. Living from choice, not reaction. This chapter ties everything together. Most people live reactively. They respond to moods, demands, pressure, fear. The let them theory moves you into intentional living. You choose how you spend energy, you choose what matters, you choose when to engage and when to step back. Life becomes quieter, clearer, more yours. Chapter 18. Let them at work. Success without self-betrayal. Work is one of the most common places where people abandon themselves. You stay late when you're exhausted. You say yes when you mean no. You accept behavior you wouldn't tolerate elsewhere. Why? Because approval feels like security. This chapter introduces a powerful realization. You do not need to manage everyone else's expectations to be successful. When you stop over-functioning at work, a few things may happen. Some people will be surprised, some will test your boundaries, some will be disappointed. Let them. Your value does not come from being endlessly available. It comes from clarity, consistency, and self-respect. When you apply let them professionally, you stop chasing validation and start building credibility. You do your job well without carrying emotional labor that was never in your role description. You become dependable, not depleted. Chapter 19. Money, control, and the fear of not enough money. Anxiety is rarely about numbers. It's about trust. Trust in yourself, trust in the future, trust that you'll be okay even if things don't go exactly as planned. This chapter explores how control shows up financially, obsessing, worrying, comparing, and catastrophizing. The let them theory helps you loosen the grip, let markets fluctuate, let others earn differently, let circumstances evolve, and then let you focus on skills, discipline, and long-term thinking. Financial peace doesn't come from predicting everything. Comes from believing you can respond to whatever comes. Chapter 20. Confidence is built when you stop seeking permission. Confidence is not loud, it's not aggressive. Doesn't explain itself. Confidence grows quietly when you stop asking, is this okay? Do you agree? What do you think I should do? This chapter explains that every time you defer your choices to others, you weaken your self-trust. When you say let them, you stop outsourcing your decisions. When you say let me, you begin collecting evidence that you can handle life. Confidence isn't something you find. It's something you build by choosing yourself repeatedly. Chapter 21. Let them be wrong about you. There will be people who misunderstand your growth. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you've become distant. They'll say you think you're better than them. What they often mean is, you no longer play the role they were comfortable with. This chapter teaches emotional maturity, the ability to allow others to hold incorrect versions of you without rushing to correct them. Let them be wrong, let them talk, let them assume. You don't need to defend a life you are actively living. Chapter 22. When letting them feels lonely. There is a quiet loneliness that can appear when you stop over-giving. You notice who only called when you fixed things, who only stayed when you carried the load, who only felt close when you abandoned yourself. This chapter does not rush past that grief, honors it, because loneliness is not proof you made the wrong choice. Often, test proof you made an honest win, and slowly, as space opens, something else arrives: peace, energy, new connections, a deeper relationship with yourself. Chapter 23: The freedom of emotional neutrality. In it, everything deserves your emotional investment. This chapter introduces emotional neutrality, the ability to observe without spiraling. Someone is rude, someone is late, someone disagrees, you notice, eat, and move, and this isn't numbness. Test selectivity, you learn where to place your emotional energy and where to life becomes lighter. Chapter 24: Let them grow at their own pace. One of the hardest lessons is accepting that growth is personal. You cannot drag people into awareness. You cannot force healing, you cannot speed up readiness. This chapter teaches compassion without attachment. You cheer quietly, you step back lovingly, you stop waiting for people to catch up, and you keep walking. Chapter 25: Designing a life that doesn't need escaping. When you stop managing others, your energy returns. And with that energy, you begin asking better questions. What do I actually want? What fills a line? What kind of life am I building? This chapter invites intentional design. You stop living reactively. You start living deliberately, not perfectly, but honestly. Chapter 26: The daily practice of let them theory. Isn't it something you master on test, something you practice daily in traffic, in conversations, in relationships, in setbacks. You notice the urge to control and you pause. You choose release, and over time, this practice becomes instinct. Final chapter: The life that waits. When you stop controlling, there is a calmer life waiting for you, not because nothing goes wrong, but because you stop arguing with what is. You stop gripping, stop chasing, stop carrying. You let people be who they are, and you let yourself be who you are becoming. The let them theory doesn't make life smaller, it makes it yours.